Hello. Today is October 14th, 2025. I'm meeting today with Mr. Donnie Huff at his home in Greeley, Colorado. I'm Brad Hoops, the interviewer for the Remember and Honor Veterans History Project. Welcome, Donnie, and thanks for sitting down today to tell your story.
You're welcome. I'm glad to do it.
Very good. Let's start out, if we could. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your date of birth, where you're born, a little bit about your early family.
Okay, well, I was born in Big Spring, Texas, and in June the 28th, 1955. And I was raised in Texas up through high school, when I went into the military when I was 17.
You did? Okay. Now at 17, you had to get your parents' permission
Right.
at that point?
My mother had to sign.
Yeah,
yes.
and she had no problem with that?
No, she had no problem with that.
And what prompted you to join the service?
Well, I was just getting out of school. It's either work or go into the service, and all of my brothers, well, some of my brothers was in the military, and so I decided to join the service.
And how was, with all the various service branches, how did you decide to join the Army?
Well, that was the only one that came and talked to me at school.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
And that was really the only one that I even chose anything of, was the Army.
And so then, after you enlisted, how soon after that did you take off for basic?
Well, we went for induction in Amarillo, Texas, and then it was shortly thereafter, I can't remember exactly, but it was less than a couple of weeks, and then we shipped out to Fort Ord, California for basic training.
I got a couple questions there. One, how was that transition going from civilian life into military life for you?
That was a trip, let me tell you. You think you're smart, you think you know everything, and you find out you don't know nothing. And I had a real problem with authority. And so I had a real hard time when I first started out of taking orders.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So that was hard.
Yeah. How was it as well? I imagine growing up you probably hadn't traveled too far away from Big Springs. Now you're in California.
Right.
What was that adjustment like? Was there any homesickness or anything like that?
Oh, there's a lot. I tell you, because I wasn't used to being away from my mom.
Yeah.
My dad wasn't so bad, but my mom, I was real close to my mom. And so, when I got to California, it was really hard.
Oh boy. Wow.
And then being stuck in a barracks with a bunch of guys, and you got to learn to get along and have your own little space, and then try to take showers, and you got a group of people and you're not used to that. It was really rough. That was a hard 11 weeks.
Oh boy. Well, so you make it through basic, and then where did you go from there then?
I went from there, went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for my advanced training, and so then that's when I went into artillery.
Now, is that something that they would test you for, or you requested, or you were just sent there? Do you know?
No, it's well, you have to take exams, and then they put you where your score. The higher the score, then the more opportunity you have.
Okay.
And so I was 13 Bravo 10, which is artillery. So
it was probably kind of nice to be back a little bit closer to familiar surroundings.
Yeah, back closer to home.
Yeah. Were you able to get leave and bounce back to home?
Yeah, and then my mom even came up to visit me in Fort Sill. So that was nice.
And how was that training? Were things getting any better for you?
No, it was about the same. It was still, I would make rank up to PLC, and then I'd get busted back down for not following orders, and I did that about 3 times, and then I finally made Spec 4. That's when things started to change. When you get in line for E5, which is a sergeant, then you get some authority. So then it started changing a little bit. But I never got past Spec 4 before I got out. So.
Yeah. And then how long were you there for your artillery training?
Oh, I was there in AIT, and then I was stationed in Fort Sill for 2 years.
Okay.
And then I went from Fort Sill and to Germany for 2 years.
Okay. Boy, that must have been an adjustment going overseas.
Oh, yeah, that was
Talk
that
a little
was
bit about
strange.
that.
Oh, that was real strange. So yeah, what was great was once I got settled and everything and through barracks. I don't know exactly how long I was over there. I finally got my wife to come over there with me. So my middle son was born in Frankfurt, Germany.
So we need to back up then and talk about how you met your wife and married. And
Oh, well, okay, back before, when I was still in school, my best friend was named John Henry Riley, and his brother had children, so we would kind of, basically me and him kind of lived together. Either I was at his house or he was at mine. And Carmen was her brother is John Henry's brother-in-law. So we all was kind of together, and she would come down in the summer to kind of watch the small kids and just visit. And so me and her got together then. So in March the 8th of 74, we was married. And so then...
Now, she didn't follow you to either one of your
no,
basic or...
not Fort Sill or
Okay.
basic, no.
But did you know her then during those, or did you date during those time periods?
Fort Sill.
Huh?
I was in Fort Sill.
Oh yeah, she was. Yeah, she was with me in Fort Sill.
Okay.
And then when I got shipped from Fort Sill to Germany, she had to stay with her mom for a short time until I brought her over there.
And you had a son, your first son by then, right? When you went to Germany, did you say?
Yeah, well, that's kind of hard because my oldest son is actually by another lady.
Oh, okay.
So
Gotcha. Okay.
But we got divorced when he was 11 months old.
Gotcha,
And
okay.
so actually me and Carmen's first son is Christopher, the one who was born in Frankfurt.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then Daniel, which is my youngest son, he was born after I got out of the service, and I got out in 76. He was born in 77
Okay.
in
Gotcha.
Brownfield, Texas. So,
So talk about your time over in Germany then.
that was weird. It was great. I mean, it was really strange trying to deal with the public because of the language barrier.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But there was so many what they call pubs. We call bars. They call pubs. And then when Carmen came over there, we lived out on the Strasses, which is town. We got an apartment, and so we had to do our shopping and everything. Well, we still got to go to the commissary because over there everything was rationed. Your cigarettes was rationed, your coffee was rationed, your liquor was all rationed, so you had a ration card. So if you wanted to get that stuff, you had to go on base to the commissary to get that stuff. And most of the time, we just go down to the stores in town. It was kind of funny. We was out shopping for groceries, and we was going through there, and we found this can that looked like beef stew. So we had it all in our cart, and we was fixing to check out with this girl that lived across the hall from our apartment. She said, "Y'all have a cat?" And we said, "No." She goes, "Then why are you buying cat food?" And I go, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "Yeah, all them cans you got is all cat food." I said, "I thought it was beef stew." So that was really a trip. And so it took us some getting to adjust it. So usually we would take one of our friends with us so we'd go shopping so we'd know what we was actually getting. And the landlady would never let us take her son out. If she seen us going out the door, she would stop us right there. And she wanted to keep the son with her while we was going out.
Why was that, do you think?
Because he was just a baby, and I don't know, maybe she didn't want him out into the public.
Oh, okay.
Because when we did manage, she'd be gone, or we'd manage to sneak out, we'd go to a pub or out on the street, and all the Germans would just kind of like flock around him, you know. Oh, look, the little baby, little baby. they would throw what we call their money was marks.
Uh-huh.
So they would throw all kinds of marks in his because he had like an old timey baby carriage that we took him in, and they would just throw all kinds of marks and stuff in there, and they made such a fuss, and it was a real experience.
I'll be darned.
And when we would go out in the field for maneuvers, I was stationed in Butzbach, Germany, and we would go up to Grafenwehr for maneuvers, and we'd be gone like maybe a month or something like that.
Wow.
doing maneuvers up there, and it was quite a ways away. And when the first time I was going to go, it was in the middle of the night, and we was getting dressed because we were supposed to leave like at 4 or 5 in the morning. She was still pregnant with my son, so she went into labor at the same time. So I had to get a hold of my first sergeant and told him, I had to get her to Frankfurt to the hospital. So I kind of got out of them maneuvers for a short time till she got the baby home. And then we'd have to take a train from Butzbach to Frankfurt if we wanted to do any major shopping or anything like that, because the little town we lived in didn't have much. It was a little bitty small town. And we lived about 12 miles from Bad Nauheim? We lived about 12 miles from Bad Nauheim, and that's where Elvis Presley was in the service at. And so we got to see some of the stuff where he was in the service at. And so it was really different. I learned how to be in a formation, how to march, how to stand, how to clean barracks, how to go on KP, peel potatoes, whatever. It was, I learned a lot in the military.
Did you get any better at authority over there, or
Yes.
were you still...
Yeah, like I said, once I hit Spec 4 and I was in line for E5, then you started getting a little bit more where you could tell the people under you, as long as you got one more rank than them, you could tell them what to do. So, but by the time I figured that out, it was almost time for me to get discharged. And I filled out a re-enlistment packet.
Was there any thought of making it a career, or?
Well, yeah, that's what I was fixing to get at. I filled out a re-enlistment packet to re-enlist in Germany, but me and the command sergeant major butted heads, and he was not even supposed to see my re-enlistment packet. But anyway, it's supposed to go from my battery commander to the re-enlistment NCO to the brigade commander. Then it's supposed to come back that way. Well, it went on and on. I never heard nothing. So finally I went to the re-enlistment NCO and asked him, I said, hey, have you heard anything about my re-enlistment packet? I'm getting down to where like a week before I have to leave. And he goes, let me check on it. And he come back a few days later and he told me, he says, well, I got bad news. I said, what's that? He goes, well, the command sergeant major threw your packet in the trash. So he says, if you want to re-enlist, you're going to have to go back to the States, re-enlist in South Carolina. And then I said, well, then I'll be stationed stateside. So I told him, I said, no, I said, just forget it. I'll just go ahead and get out. So.
Well, talk a little bit about, you said you went on maneuvers and stuff. Talk a little bit about what those were like and what your position in the whole thing and your duties and such.
Yeah, well, when we went up for maneuvers, we camped out. We had you get your field equipment, they call it, which is your hard hat, your M16, and you get a tent half, you get a sleeping bag. So then you bunk up with another person so you can put the two tent halves together to make a tent. So you sleep outside, and whenever they have what they call mess hall, all it is a tent with tables, and you go in there and it's just like a buffet. Just the food's all out in trays. You just go through there and they help your plate. You've got like 5 minutes to eat. They teach you how you got to eat really fast. Get out of there and start, and you do a whole lot of running. Everywhere you was going, you was either double timing or running, and you did a lot of marching. And But out in the field, it was kind of like they imitated like if you was in a war zone, and so everybody had to watch each other's back. And then whenever you would be, sometimes you do training where they had live fire shooting over you, so you have to kind of crawl around and stuff like that. But yeah, it was really different and cold in the wintertime.
Yeah,
It was
probably damp and cold, sleeping on the ground like
rained
that.
a lot, yeah. And then if you didn't find somebody to bunk up with, well, you just take your shelter half, lay it on the ground, put your sleeping bag, bring it on, snap it together, make it like a little cocoon. So yeah, it was different.
And you guys would go out and do that weeks at a time?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, we'd be up there sometime, like I said, almost a month. You'd be up there doing it. And when you wasn't out in the field training, see, because like I said, I was in artillery, and so they have barracks, but you didn't have a assigned barrack. You just was in there for a while, and then you're back out in the field again. You get in to take a shower or whatever. You only got to do that when you're in those barracks, because they didn't have one out in the field. So you have actually your hard hat or helmet, whatever you want to call it, come in two parts. It had a fiberglass liner and a steel outside cover. So you would put hot water in there to shave, so that you could lather your face up so you could shave. And it was really different. And back to Fort Sill, where I learned about, because I worked on the 109 howitzers, the tanks, and I was actually driving one, and I was also the #1 gunner on the inside. Whenever you'd fire it, I would be the one that would pull the lanyard that would actually fire the cannon. So we would be driving in a convoy, and they would send down a message called a hip shoot. And when they do that, no matter where you're at, you just turn off the road, set your gun up, and you get ready to fire it, and you fire it like that.
How quick could you guys set up a gun, do you figure?
Oh, within 10 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. It was, because it was on tracks. It was, an M109 howitzer. And when you spun off the road like that, and once you got it stopped, the other ones are already getting the ammo out, getting everything set up. So everybody had their own little job, what they had to do. So once I got it parked and got it secured, then I went around and got in. And it's weird because the M109 howitzer has a breech block, and it's hard to explain, but it's a big round steel piece that has teeth on it, and when you open it, it rotates, and you open it. Then they put the shell on the inside, and then when you close it, when it slams shut, it rotates, and then you have a firing mechanism that you put on there, and it takes a shotgun shell and you put it in there, and then you pull the lanyard, and then that fires the shotgun shell, which fires the round that shoots it out.
Huh.
And then you have an elevation guy on one side and a deflection guy on the other side, which elevates and turns the barrel to whatever coordinates they send down. And so you're standing inside this turret when you fire it. So all of the concussion and everything's all inside of that turret.
Hopefully you guys had ear protection.
Yeah, we had little round styrofoam earplugs. That's why I have to have hearing aids.
I was going to ask if that led to any hearing issues.
Oh yes,
yeah.
I'm 100% disability on my hearing. So.
And I imagine it had a recoil to it.
Oh yeah.
You had to get out of the way of that.
Well, you're standing off to the side.
Yeah.
So everybody else has to get out of their way. Of course, I'm standing over here to when you pull it and fire it, it comes back. And we actually had in the floor of the howitzer, it had an indent to where they've elevated it so high when it come back, it would hit the bottom of the floor of the howitzer. And so, but in Germany, I got into the mail room, which I would drive a deuce and a half, and I would take the laundry and some other enlisted people, and we would take all of the battalion's laundry and we'd take it to the laundry downtown or wherever it's supposed to go, to the cleaners, whatever you want to call it. And then whenever they would go out on maneuvers, I would drive a van and I would take the mail, and on payday I would be in charge of taking all the money, and then plus new recruits that was coming over there, that when they're out in the field, I would have to take them out to where they was be with their battalions.
During that time, it was, the height of the Cold War. Was there any, did you ever fall under any warnings or any?
Oh yeah, when Desert Storm was kicking off.
Oh, right.
Okay, I was on, the wife and my child was over there, and every weekend we was on red alert. So I would have to I'd have to go in and stay in the barracks during that red alert. I had to have my wife and son packed up with the plane ticket and they would have to have sea rations. So if the war broke out, they could ship them home, and then I would go out where the war was going on. So that was during Desert Storm. But luckily, I never had to go. I had to go out red alert almost for a month, every weekend. And during the week, of course, you did your regular duties and stuff. But
I'll be done. Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Did you guys, while over there, get a chance to travel to any other countries and see anything else?
No, we didn't go to any other countries. We went to Frankfurt quite a lot, and we was kind of funny because when my wife first went over there, and we was on a train, and she would been hearing about this, what they call the red light district. And she kept telling me, well, I want you to take me to see the red light district. I said, you don't want to go there. I said, you don't want to go there. And she goes, yes, please take me there. So I said, okay. So I took her down there, and there's all these guys standing out there on the street, saying, hey, Brain, come on in, look at the women and this and that and all this. And she's going, her face, you could see, I had to still see the expression on her face. She's like, where we at? And I said, well, I told you didn't want to come down here. I said, because this is kind of more or less the whorehouse district.
Yeah, right.
But other than that, we went to a lot of different pubs, which were nice, and we'd go out and eat and stuff like that. And so we had a good time over there.
So how long were you stationed over in Germany?
2 years.
2 years, yeah.
And I had a friend, his name was Bob and Peggy Haithcote, and he had been in Vietnam, and he was a door gunner in a helicopter, and he got shot across the eye up here. So he had, what do you call it, when they have shell shock, and so his poor wife, she would wind up with black eyes and bruises because he would go back into have a backflash,
right.
And she would try to get up to go to the bathroom or something. He'd jump on her, hold her down, try to pin her down because he'd be thinking about when the fighting and stuff. But we was over there with them, and we got along real good with them. And I think he was E5, wasn't he, coming? He was an E5, so he got housing on base. So during the weekend we'd go to his house and have parties and barbecues and stuff like that. So it was different.
Yeah. So because you weren't able to re-enlist, so you after your 2 years you came back to the States. And
yes.
Did you have time left to serve back here, or
no.
Did you get out?
No, I got out in Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh, okay.
So it was supposed to be just in there, discharge and leave, but it took us a week for them to discharge me out because they kept running into problems here, running into problems there. And since my wife was with me, we had to get a motel, and the air conditioner was down. Oh, and it was so hot. Yeah. It was so hot down there. But we finally got out, and then we came back. So we went back to Brownfield or to here from Charleston?
Texas.
Oh, we went to Texas.
So why did you get discharged in Charleston as opposed to back in Texas? Or
that's where they sent us to from Germany to Charleston, South Carolina to get discharged.
Did they get you back home?
No.
You were responsible to get yourself back home?
Once they kicked you out the door at Charleston, South Carolina, you was on your own. They gave you they gave you a discharge check, I guess your last paycheck, if you want to call it that, and it was up to you to get from there to wherever you was going to go live. Yeah,
wow.
so it's just like, okay, see ya, you're out of here.
So you guys went to Texas then?
Yeah, back up to Brownfield, Texas, where my mom lived. So we was there for a couple of years. Well, at least 1 year, because my son was born there, and he was born in '77. So, and then when I got out of the service, I went to driving truck. So I drove semi from '77 up to 2013.
So basically your whole career after the military was a
Truck driver, yeah.
Wow.
Basically, I was 45 years driving truck. So, yeah, and I probably would still be driving truck, except for the young people now, they have no respect.
Is that right?
They don't, I mean, even people driving cars, they have no respect for the trucks. You know, they pull out in front of you, they try to cut you off, this, that, and the other. And I told her, I said, I'm done. I said, I don't want to be responsible for killing somebody.
Yeah, right.
And during my driving career, I had like 4 semi-wrecks. And God was with me in every one of them, because I walked away from every one of them. So, yeah, it was a trip.
But all in all, was it a good career? Did you enjoy it? Yeah.
Well, sometimes yeah, sometimes no. It was up and down like anything else, you know.
Right.
And now the government has got so many regulations against everything now. Back in the old days, you could run 24 hours a day if you wanted to, and nobody would say a word. Nowadays, you can't drive but 11 hours. You got to be off 12 hours. And you got to be at a certain place at a certain time, and if you can only drive 500 miles in one day, and then you have to stop and you have to take a break and then start all over again, and it's just got too much.
Yeah. What brought you up here to Greeley? How'd you end up here in Greeley?
Well, we started out in Longmont, because that's where her mom and dad lived at first, and then they moved. Well, we moved kind of around from Longmont to Berthoud to Loveland, and then we had a real good friend, Kathy and Sergio. They lived here in Greeley, and so they talked us into. We moved across the street from them, and that's how we got here in Greeley, and we've been here ever since, which has been about 20 years already.
More than that.
Well, more than that, but yeah, we've been here. I think. Maybe the late 80s, I think we moved to Colorado. We was out in California for 3 years, and I was driving truck out there, and nearly got divorced over that because my boys were young. Excuse me. And my wife. And my wife was having to take care of the 3 kids, and it just wasn't working.
Yeah.
And then her dad come down sick, because they lived here in Colorado, and so we just decided just to pack up and come back up here so she could be with her mom and dad.
Sure.
And we was until they passed away, and so we're still here.
Yeah. Through the years, I mean, were you in long enough to make friends? Did you ever keep in touch with anybody that you served with, or was there any sort of like unit reunions or anything like that?
No, we haven't been to any reunions.
Yeah.
We had a sergeant. He was an E6 at the time. His name was Sergeant Romero, and he basically took my wife back and forth to the doctor while she was still pregnant. And I really wanted to keep in touch with him, but I haven't been able to find him. He's supposed to live in Colorado Springs, or in Denver, but we haven't been able to find him. And we've lost touch with Bob and Peggy. I don't know where they're at either. So we don't.
Yeah.
And we had another. He was another Spec 4. His name was Smiley. Well, his name was something else, but they call him Smiley. And he was a real good friend over there. He took care of Carmen a lot too when I was out in the field and stuff. But we've lost touch with him too. So yeah, I don't see anybody I was in the military with.
Yeah.
So
How was that year? Those couple of years. You hear so often that the enlisted men almost live on the poverty line. Were you guys able to survive fairly well there, or was?
Well, that's back in the '70s. It wasn't. I mean, it wasn't expensive as it is now.
Yeah.
But there was a time in Fort Sill where Carmen's mom would have to send us money in between paydays so that we could eat or pay our rent or utilities, because even the military didn't pay a lot back then.
Yeah.
Of course, we thought it was because we didn't know any better.
Yeah.
But if you look at compared now to then, it wasn't. It was probably lower than minimum wage.
Yeah. Right.
But and we lived in a trailer house in Fort Sill, off base, because didn't have any rank to get housing on base provided by the government. So we had to live off base and live in a mobile home. We had a little car, and I told my wife, I said, now when you drive the car, I said, don't run it out of gas. I said, or it'd be real hard to get started. Well, she ran it out of gas one time, and a guy helped her push it into the station and put gas in it. Well, it backfired, so the carburetor caught on fire, but they got it put out. But that's just some old cars we had, that barely got us around. And then we was out in California. We had two cars. I had an old Ford, and I had a little, it was a little station wagon. And she would drive the Ford until it got hot. So she'd park it, and then she'd get in the other car, and she'd drive it till it got hot, because it had a cracked head on it or something, but it kept getting hot all the time. But we managed, but I mean, it wasn't easy.
Wow. Well, you recently went on the honor flight. Talk a little about that, your experience on that trip.
Oh my God, that was so great. I didn't know anything about the honor flight up until probably 2 years ago, and I was in Loveland at the Golden Corral. Well, I guess I don't know if it's every morning, but every weekend or something.
Every Saturday.
Every Saturday they have a big deep breakfast. So me and Carmen was over there, and I had my hat on, and this gentleman come over, and he told me, he says, how come, he says, you ever think about coming and joining us for breakfast on Saturday? And I said, well, I didn't know anything about it. And I said, this is the first time I've even seen y'all together. And he goes, do you know anything about what they call the honor flight? And I said, no, what is that? He goes, well, you apply, and if they accept you, then the government pays for everything to fly to Washington, D.C., and to go see all the walls and everything. And I said, oh, that would be so great. And so I went online and I applied. Well, I was on standby. And they told me, they said, well, if something happens on September the 28th and 29th is when we're going, then we'll let you know. Well, I didn't hear nothing. I didn't hear nothing. And then on the 27th, they called me up and they said, are you interested in going on that honor flight? And I said, well, yeah. I said, but what happens? He said, well, one of our soldiers got put in the hospital at the ER, so he's not going to be able to go. So are you interested in going? I said, yes, I'll go. So I had to pack me a bag and be over at the ranch on that Sunday morning.
Right.
And so that's how that come about. And then everybody met there, and there was so many people there. You didn't know who was who or who was going where, but there was so many people. And then once we got all ready to go, we all get on a bus. We had 4 buses, and so we had 200 and something veterans plus the guardians was going, and we had that big. They gave us a big.
The send-off ceremony?
No, is where they guide you.
The parade route, or the parade route to the airport?
Yeah. They had like 50 motorcycles, and then the cops and
caravan.
Then they led us all the way over from the ranch to the airport, and then once we got there, of course, you had to go through security and everything, and then we got out. We had to walk out to the plane because it was just plane we had to get on there. And then once they took off, and then we landed in Baltimore. And I called my wife and I told her, I said, I'm in Baltimore. She goes, you in Baltimore, Washington, or Baltimore, Maryland? I said, well, I think it's Baltimore, Maryland. I said, but I'm not for sure. I said, because the sign says Baltimore, Washington. So I said, I don't know. So yeah, and then so they took us to the motel, and which was a nice Hilton, and we got out, checked in there. We spent the night there, and then the next day they had breakfast, and they had a big talking. And I didn't know that Washington, D.C. does not have military. All they have is National Guard. So they had a colonel, and he didn't look more than about 26 to me, but the way he talked, he'd been in there forever.
Huh.
But he was telling us about the National Guard and what all they do and what everything, and they're actually the only ones that protect Washington, D.C. is the National Guard. And I figured, I said, well, this is Washington, D.C. I figured they had all kinds of military, but no. And so then we all got on the buses, and then that's when we started our tour to go see the Vietnam Wall. We seen the Korean Wall. Then we seen the World War II wall that they just got opened up to the public. And now they're building for Desert Storm. They're building that wall up there. We didn't get to see it because it's under construction.
Right.
But I got to go see the Lincoln Monument and Lincoln sitting on his chair, and then
Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
yes, I got to see the changing of the guards.
That's something else, isn't it?
That is neat. That you'd think if you didn't know that it was real people, you'd think there's robots.
Yeah.
Everything is just down to and I could told Carmen, I said there was over 200 people standing there watching that, and you could hear a pin drop, because that's one thing that the officer said. He says during the changing of the guard there will be no talking, there will be no noise at all. And I figured, well, back in my head, that the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, I figured is a big column, or something. It's just a little concrete building with the words on it and everything. And you can see on the concrete where they walk back and forth. And they got a black mat that runs from one end to the other. But off of the concrete, you can see where, when they switch guards, where they walk back and forth. It's like a trail from where they move, and they never get off of it. I can't believe it. But they change them every 30 minutes. I can't believe that. But they did tell us that if you're chosen to be a guard, you have to sign a 2-year contract, and you have to live underneath the tomb for 2 years. Yeah. And I said, oh my goodness. And they said you're not allowed to be out in the public drinking, cussing, or anything like that. And you spend 5 hours a day learning all of Arlington Cemetery, where people's buried, their names. He said, and then you spend the other 5 hours of the day getting your uniform ready to go out for that 30 minutes of changing the guard. I said, my goodness, that's something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a video on my phone where they're coming where he comes out from where they stay underneath the tomb, and they walk up, and then they go out in front of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. I filmed all of that while we was there. So, and then we got to go inside the building right there where it's not out where the tomb is, but it's that great big building that they have there, and it's got just cases and cases and cases of different medals and ribbons and all kinds of stuff they have. And I kept asking my guardian, I said, how come that they're doing all of this, but they don't have anything back as far as the Indian days? And then when I got inside the building, there was the case. It had an Indian's headrest, and it had the shafts that they used for hunting and all kinds. They had all that, and I said, well, I guess I talked too soon. I said, because they do have some of that in there. But they had all the way back from like World War I to the Korean, the Vietnam. They had all of those in different cases in there. So that was really, really different. And then when we went to the Lincoln Memorial and the Vietnam Wall, they had a store there where you could purchase stuff. And I got Carmen a couple of shirts, and I got a cup and some different things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's a great trip, isn't it?
yes,
Yeah.
oh, it was. Oh man, it was. I will never ever do anything as great as that again.
Yeah.
I mean, and I asked them, I said, how many times can you come? They said, it's only one time in your lifetime, unless you become a guardian.
Yeah.
Then because I kept seeing these people, I wouldn't say just ladies, because there's men too, but they had all the little gold pins on their hat, and they had like 8, 9, 10 of them. I'm going, I thought you said you could only come one time. She goes, no, if you're a guardian, you come every time, and then you get a pin every time.
But you have to pay for that yourself.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, the guardians do. Yeah.
Oh wow. Do they pay guardians to be a guardian?
You've got to pay to be a guardian. It's like $1,000 to be a guardian.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And you said earlier that the government pays for it, the trip. It's all private donations. Government has nothing to do with it.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought the government paid for that.
No, it's all private local donations.
Really?
Yeah.
So that they do benefits and stuff to collect fundraisers to make money. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
They didn't tell us that part.
Yeah.
But Jody was my guardian. She was really great.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So
She's a great gal.
yeah.
Well, Donnie, as we start to wind down this interview, is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about? Any other stories that have floated to the top while we were sitting here talking that you wanted to talk about? So that ideally we get a well-rounded version of your story. I know we only got probably the tip of the iceberg of it, but or do you think we covered everything that you wanted to cover?
Well, basically, yeah, because, I mean, even when I was in Fort Ord, California, we would go out on the gun range, to qualify with the M16, or the grenade range, and one particular time we was on the grenade range, and I was which in the book it doesn't show, they show logs, but these were concrete walls. You had like a little cubby where you're at, and there was me and then a blank one and then another guy. Well, when I throwed my grenade out, which is fine, that's what you're supposed to do. Well, he took his and pulled the pin. He just dropped it in the one between me and him. Oh, and the sergeant run around there, and luckily they have trenches. So he kicked it off in the trench, and just as he got it kicked off in the trench, it exploded.
Oh.
So nobody got hurt, but man, was that sergeant mad. I thought he was going to kill that poor guy. And then, so they shut the range down. They have to close it completely down, and they have to investigate what happened and all of that. So, yeah, it was a bad day that day. And, of course, we all got sent back to our barracks and everything, but he got in big trouble over that. I never heard what happened, but yeah, that sergeant, he told that guy he was going to beat him up, and he told the sergeant, well, if you wasn't wearing stripes, I'd kick your. And he says, well, he just grabbed his collar and he yanked his stripes off and he put them in. He goes, I ain't got them on now. He says, come on. And that stuck in my mind, and it's just people like that think they can get away with stuff that they don't realize how much danger they're putting everybody else in. Because, I mean, that is very simple. That thing could have exploded, could have got me, him.
Right, yeah.
It could have got the sergeant, some other people that was in line there too. But, yeah, it was crazy. And
any other accidents and any other maneuvers through the years that were kind of dangerous?
Well, there was one that was really kind of sad. Is we was going out. This still happened in Fort Ord. We was all in our battalion. We was all marching, and we was going out to the range. Well, when you get out there, you get put in a pen, or if you want to call it that. And there's these two Oriental kids. Well, I call them kids. They was guys, and there's always shadow boxing, And I just told them, I said, you know what, guys? I said, one of these days, one of you is going to slap the other one a little too hard. I said, you're going to get mad. I said, then you're going to be in trouble. And they said, no, we've been friends for that, blah, 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 blah. I said, okay. And then the next thing I know, I hear all of this commotion going on. And I mean, they was both bloody. They had beat each other almost to a pulp. And not just it wasn't the drill sergeant, but it was the commander that came over. And he made those guys hold hands all the way from where we was at, all the way back to the barracks. He said, and if my sergeant or me see you drop your hand one time, he says, we will go back and we'll start all over. But he made them hold hands all the way back to the barracks. And I said, man, I said, it ain't worth it. I said, y'all get to goofing off. I said, it ain't worth it. I said, y'all got a job to do. I said, it's like any other job. But people just, I don't know, me included, you just don't, it is at that time, in that age, it doesn't click in your mind that it's a job. You know, you're in there to do this. And like I said, I was all the way into, actually, I guess maybe the couple of years I was in Fort Sill, I kind of started realizing, you know, that it's not worth bucking the system. It's just go along with the system, do what you got to do. And I think if I could have got out in Germany, who knows, I might have put in 20 years, who knows. But
that's too bad.
Yeah, it is what it is. But like I said, I had my chance.
Yeah.
I went to serve my country, and I got out, and you know, luckily I didn't have to go to a wartime. But when I did go in, it was right at the end of what they call the Black Boot Army. That's back when, you know, sergeants could really abuse you.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then it was changing over from the Black Boot Army to the All-Volunteer Army. And so now, I don't know for sure, but I understand that now they can't do nothing to you. They can't holler at you. They can't force you to do nothing. You know, they can tell you to do something. If you do it, you do it. If you don't, you don't. But when I went in, there was nothing like that. I mean, the sergeants could get in your face. Because I went out on one time when I was going up to Grafenwehr, and I took the mail truck up, the van, and the guys had come out and got the mail and the payroll and took it inside, and the command sergeant major come out, and he grabbed me by my collar and put me up against the wall of the barracks. There was those Quonset huts, and my feet must have been 6 or 8 inches off the ground. He had me slammed over, and he's screaming at me in my face, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm looking over his shoulder, and I'm just smiling. And he's screaming at me, what the hell are you smiling at? And I said, that major's standing right there behind you. And he turned around, there was that major standing there. And he told me, he goes, soldier, he says, go inside. And it didn't matter if he's inside or not. You could hear that major cussing that command sergeant major like, oh, he was, I don't know if he got busted over that or not, but I bet you he got reprimanded really good on that deal. And I think that was what caused him to just throw my package away.
That's the same guy?
Same command sergeant major, yeah. And so when they all got back in the rear to the barracks and everything, I never heard any more about it, but I'm pretty sure that's what led up to that. If him not approving my reenlistment.
Oh man. Wow. And you'd said earlier you got disability from hearing.
Yeah.
Is the VA taking good? How do you feel about your care? You've been taken care of? You?
Yeah, they do. They do me a good job.
Okay.
Yeah, I get a disability check from the VA from my hearing, and when I need to go to the doctor, I go over to Loveland to the new VA clinic they got over there, or I go to Cheyenne to the hospital up there. So anything, I mean, I get all my medication shipped here to my house. It comes in the mailbox. And anytime the doctors give me anything that I need, they send it to me. And because I've been getting my sensors for my sugar, so they send that here to the house. So, and it took me a while to get that because I was doing the finger sticking for a long time. But then they got me on blood thinners, so when I was sticking my finger, it didn't want to quit bleeding. So I went back and I talked to the doctor about that, and they said, okay, we'll get you on this Libre 3 sensors.
Oh, good.
So I got that, so it goes to my phone, so
Very
that
good.
makes it a whole lot better. But now coming up in November, I got 2 MRIs I got to go have done on my head, because I had one done last month, and they found a spot or something in my brain. And so that I think that, I'm not for sure, but I think that's what they're going to go and check and see if it's gotten any bigger or changed or anything like that. But I got 2 MRIs scheduled up in Cheyenne for that.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. Yeah. Well, Donnie, the last question I always like to ask with these interviews is, as you look back on your time in the Army, did it play a role in your life, affect your life, change your life at all, or do you just look at it simply as just a chapter in your
No,
life?
it changed my life big time.
Yeah.
I try to talk to all of these young kids. If you have the opportunity, go in the military. I don't care what branch it is. I don't care how long it is. I said, but at least go get the experience. I said, it will change your life dramatically. And it did mine. It changed me big time.
Wow.
And like I said, until about, I never used the military. When I got out of the military, I never checked in on nothing. I never used anything up until about, how long ago, Carmen? About 8 years ago?
Yeah.
About 8 years ago. Then, because I have my youngest son's father-in-law, he was in the Navy, and he was talking to me. And so then I started checking in on it, and then that's when I started using the VA and using the military, and then that's when I first started out with my hearing. They gave me a 10% disability, which was a little tiny check, but that's neither here nor there. And then a year later, I went back and had another test, and then that's when they did a more intense test, and they found out I was 100% on my hearing. So.
Wow. Yeah.
And so they gave me the hearing aids. I got them in there in my room. I don't wear them all the time. I should, but I don't. But I have them in there in my room. And it even has a box that's connected to my phone that I can answer my phone through my hearing aids. So it makes it pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. Well, I want to thank you for sitting down today to tell your story, but just as important, I want to thank you for your service to our country.
I'm glad to do it. If I had it to do again, I'd do it all
Would
over
you?
again,
Yeah.
yes. But this time, I think I would be a little smarter and do it a little different. You know what I was thinking, and this has not really anything to do with it, but to me, it seems like every time there's a war broke out, they send all of our young people over there. And to me, it's just thinning out our population. So why don't they take the older people that's already lived their life, that can still, hold a gun and, do what they got to do. Send them over there to fight the war and leave our young people here to rule the country instead of killing all of our young people.
Yeah.
That's because if they would come up and ask me, I would go. I would go do it. I would, and I'm 70 years old, but I can still use a gun. Matter of fact, I got my 45 in there in my bedroom, but I would go do it in a heartbeat. Oh, that was something else I was going to mention.
Yeah, please.
When I was in Fort Sill, I got the opportunity to be a second lieutenant's driver as a forward observer. Ooh. Where you go up on the hill, and you're actually the one that's calling in the rounds where they're going to land and this and that and the other. And for one time, we was doing a hip shoot, and we don't have a forward observer then. But this second lieutenant came into our gun, and he says, "I want you to fire this gun." I said, "Well, they haven't sent us any quadrances down yet." "I don't care. I want you to fire this gun." I said, "Sir, we can't until we." He says, "You don't tell me what you can and can't do." I said, "Okay." So we loaded it up, and I fired it. And just luckily, there was no one in the forward observer hut up on the mountain, because that round blew it right off the side of the mountain. So, of course, they shut down the whole range. They had to do all the investigation on what happened and all that, and they tried to pin it on us as being too impatient in shooting the gun when we wasn't supposed to. And luckily, though, there was a captain there, too, that heard the second lieutenant give the order for us to do that. So that's the only thing that protected us that time. And if there would have been anybody up there around that building when it went, it would have killed them.
Wow.
And so that's what kind of, didn't have too much respect for second lieutenants because they come straight out of the academy and they think they know everything and they don't. But I had a good time. And then at that time I was carrying an M203, which is an M16 with a grenade launcher attached to the bottom of it. And so I had a good time driving the Jeep then. So,
Very good.
and in our C rations, when we was out in the field, I didn't bring this up.
Yeah, please.
C rations, you know, it comes back in the old days, comes in the can, and there's like beanie weenies, eggs and sausage and different kinds of food. Well, we'd take a trash can, fill it about half full of water, and we'd put it over our burner, our heater burner, whatever, propane, whatever it was, and we'd put all the cans in there and let them boil, and that's how we'd heat that food up so we could eat it.
Oh, jeez.
And that stuff was canned. It had dates on it. It was canned back in the 1930s, and they was still feeding it to us back in the 70s.
Wow.
So yeah, it was crazy.
I'll be darned. Well, Donnie, thank you once again for your time today, and like I said earlier, thank you for your service to our country.
I'm glad I got to talk to you. This is my picture from when I was in basic training in Fort Ord, California in 1972. And that's my battalion, my battery that I was in Fort Ord, California.
Can you easily point yourself out, or you're just in there somewhere?
I'm in there somewhere. I think in the second row at the top or something. I don't know exactly where I am in there because everybody looks the same.
Yeah, fair enough.
And this one over here,
Oh, this is nice.
yeah, that's my shadow box. That's the red ones is my battalion's emblem or crest, if you will, and with my U.S. and my artillery. And those plaques you see, the paper, they're from Vietnam. That's 50 years they had a ceremony there in Fort Lupton, and I got to walk across the stage, and they gave us those plaques. And down at the bottom I got from the honor flight up there they gave us when we got back. And then the rest of these plaques are what my sons have gave me, and I keep them on my wall. They give it to me for my birthday or Christmas.
Very nice.
And then this is my hat that I got from when I was up at the honor flight.
Okay.
And this is and then this one is the plaque that they gave us. Piece is done. I don't know what they're called. They're called pin art, and they take and she puts little balls. They're little balls and glue, and they make a picture.
Wow.
And she done me those two. And then this picture here is when I was in Fort Sill.
Yeah, right.
This is my military discharge from when I got out of the service. And this is a certificate of appreciation, which I don't remember what it's for, but then this is my military service certificate. And then this is my book from when I was in basic training in Fort Ord, California. Where you at? At the Eagle? That's the one that my niece just bought me here last year. She bought it for my yard. I bought that one over in Loveland at the store. And then my nephew gave me these two soldiers here. And I always say the one that's standing up, he's watching them go to war. And the one that's kneeling is for the ones that didn't make it back.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Oh, very nice.